Hi, a very good afternoon to all parents as well as some of our people who are watching in to this e-open house for Admiralty Primary School. I'm Mr. Chen, the principal of the school. Allow me to just get started a little bit while we are waiting. Excuse me, while we are waiting for others to join in. We are expecting a few more today, so I shall go a little bit slower at the start. Just to share with everyone, we are recording today's session because we will put it up on our school's YouTube site. So in case anyone who is joining in a bit later, if you have missed a few things at the start, or if you wish to review some of the things that has been mentioned, feel free to go to our school's YouTube site to take a look. We will also upload our PowerPoint slides onto our school website. Along the way, feel free to type in your questions into the chat group. What will happen is that my team is looking at the questions that you have posed for us. We will be answering them while the presentation is ongoing. For some questions that we are not able to answer in the chat group during the presentation, towards the end of my presentation, we will also do a Q&A. Okay? Keep the questions coming. I hope that this session will be informative for everyone from two perspectives. One is, if you are looking at Admiralty Primary School as being a school of your choice, I think what are some of the things that our school has to offer for our children who are coming in next year? Or even after that, some of you may be thinking a few years down the road. The other thing is, hopefully beyond just Admiralty Primary School as a choice, I do want to encourage all parents to think widely. After all, there are probably a few more other open houses that you are going for. For my school, it's an e-open house. There are other schools that are doing a physical open house. Feel free to just look around so that you have a decision that you can make, an informed choice that you can make at the end of the day. Okay. Now, just a very quick introduction. Like I mentioned, I'm Mr. Chen, the principal. I have with me today as well Mrs. Joyce Lim, my vice principal in charge of academic matters, as well as Mr. Hamri, who is the vice principal for administrative matters. Okay. And key objectives of today's e-open house, I think a couple of things. One is about what Admiralty Primary School has to offer to you in terms of primary school education for yourself as well as your children. And I think very importantly as well is a decision making on the choice of the school ultimately. It's okay if at the end of the day, after you have heard me, you have heard what the school actually stands for in terms of the brand of education, gone to our school website and taken a look, and you feel that there are other schools out there that may be a better fit for your child, I think that's perfectly fine. But at the end of the day, the whole idea here is to give you some of this information so that you can make a good choice. So I think just wanted to start the first part of this, not really so much about selling my school per se, but I thought that I wanted to give some information to all parents who are looking at preparing your child for primary level education. Because I think first and foremost, that is what we may want to think about and put it at the back of our minds while we are working with our children, helping them to grow through the years. Primary level education is very, very different from preschool. My older girl just went into P1 this year, and we are already seeing that in terms of the transition. Sometimes we think back, what were certain things that we could have done when she was in preschool to help her transit even better. So allow me just to share, if we ask ourselves that very important question, can we remember our own first day of school in primary school? So some of the pictures here, even if it's not our own first day, if you have children who have stepped into primary school, do we see a lot of tears? Children being very scared because the school environment is really quite different, a primary school environment compared to a preschool environment? Or was your child really very, very happy stepping into a primary school? Okay, would that be the faces that we will see among some of our children as well? Excited, they're very happy to go into a school whereby there are so many other friends that they can actually meet and make along the way. Or would they be confused because of the facilities that you have in the school? The campus is really much bigger than what they would have experienced in a preschool. Some will be eagerly coming in, knowing that there are new subjects that they are learning and picking out along the way. And I think these are some of the different kinds of experiences and emotions that we ourselves probably experience going into primary school, and we can expect our children to be facing on the first day of school, going into a primary school. So I think there are many things that we can do to help our children prepare for this transition. And I would like to encourage parents that As you're sitting through this presentation, I think by the end of presentation, hopefully you have taken back some tips and strategies that we feel we can get started with our children on. I think some information to provide you so that we are aware of some background information. One is that our primary schools are much bigger than the preschool that your child is currently in, be it physical size as well as the staff of the school. For typical primary schools, Admiralty, for example, we have got 80 teaching staff. Number of students, I have a total of 1,260 students. It's much bigger than what you have in the preschool. We have bigger class sizes as well. At primary 1 and primary 2, we are looking at 30 students for each P1 and P2 class. Most of our preschools, they hover at around 15 per class. They may open a few more classes in some of the preschools, bigger preschools, but they hardly exceed 20 students per class. Classrooms are not air conditioned. Now, I was talking to a friend recently, and when her girl went for an open house together with the mummy, the girl immediately mentioned to the mummy that I love the school and what I'm seeing, except that the classrooms are not air conditioned. But let's expect this, and let's help our children expect this. Actually, all the primary schools in Singapore, unless you're talking about special rooms, because of the special facilities, they are not air conditioned. I think that we do want our children to understand that as well. And our students being at the primary level now, I think they are expected to gradually become more independent and more self-directed in their learning. So a very big part of this entire process of growing up is that we will slowly, as parents, start to actually fade a little bit more into that background, because you want to actually help them to build up some of these social skills, build up some of these independence, and different skills that they will have to actually be quite comfortable in dealing with. So for example, going into a classroom, knowing that they will have to do some note taking. What is happening in the class? Sometimes they need to know that, okay, I have a piece of homework that I need to do today. And they usually do have a handbook. In all primary schools, we do give our students a handbook where they are expected to take down some of these notes to say that, okay, for Chinese language, if you are a Chinese language student, that maybe I need to do this, I need to read which pages. Right? So gradually, I think we will always help our students to develop such skills. It's a different school routine as well, right? Because all our students must report to school for flag raising and pledge taking. Unlike in a preschool where it's optional, while it's strongly encouraged in preschool, but in our national primary schools, they are expected to report on time. For most primary schools, it's by 7:30. Timetable will run. And if I were to use Admiralty Primary School as an example, because we do have lunch provided for our students, and on Monday mornings for our P3s to P6s, we have co-curricular activities, CCAs. So it doesn't impact the P1s and P2s in terms of CCAs, but then our school actually starts a little bit, starts on time at 7:30, but we do end a little bit later at 2:10. So before joining the school, other things to probably take note and to also talk to our children about is, try and understand more about the new environment of our school. So for example, what you're doing right now, parents, I think it's a wise thing that you are doing, attending e-orientations, face-to-face orientations, open houses, so on and so forth. Towards the second half of the year, when the P1 registration has already passed and you already know which school your child will be allocated to, do attend the orientations, because very often for Admiralty Primary, for example, towards the end of the year, we will have an orientation for our students who have been actually successful in registering for the school. There's a very good chance for your child to come in and you can take a look at the school environment as well. Show the child pictures of the school, use the school website. These are different examples. Understand the new rules, because going into a school that is of this size, naturally, school rules are really quite important. School rules are not just something which is, a very fixed thing that we use to discipline the children, but it's more that it allows our children to understand how do we socialize in a new environment. When we have 1,000 over students in the school, our schools are like a very small society of our larger Singapore society. Right? So it also allows our students to be exposed to how should we actually behave and how should we act when we are in such a small society called Admiralty Primary School as an example. To get help in the school, I think it's important to assure your child as well, in Admiralty Primary School especially, other schools as well, that should they encounter any problems in the school, they can always seek help from different people. One of the areas which are always packed with students, especially towards the start of the school, is our general office. And our general office staff are always very well trained. They know when students come to the general office to seek help for all kinds of things. Maybe they fell down, they scraped their knees, they forgot to bring this, they don't have water, they forgot to bring the wallet, so on and so forth. Right? There is always that first port of call, especially for our youngest students. Gradually, we do want to build in them their own problem-solving skills, but then at the start, naturally, they will know who are the people they can approach, right? Approach our friendly general office staff, their teachers as well, form teachers, different people who can actually listen to them and help them along the way. So we want our students to know that even when you start to transit into a big school like ours, you can always turn to people for help. That's very, very important. And after joining the school, I think building relationships is one of the biggest things that we want to help, especially our primary one students grow. They will start to meet new friends. They will start to interact with teachers. Teaching in a primary school is also different from teaching in a preschool, because in a preschool setting, the teachers spend a lot more time in terms of the care components and care aspects for the children. In a primary school, the academics as well as the non-academic holistic education perspectives and time taken in these areas come in. And that's where teachers actually spend a lot more time, not just on the academics, also listening to the students, working with them as well. But there is all these things that the teachers will have to balance. So I think help our children appreciate diversity, accept differences. Sometimes when we talk to our children, we can also talk to them about how do we deal with friends who may actually be reacting to you differently on your first few days of school, right? I think these are some things that we can probably talk to our children about. I mentioned this earlier as well, the idea about new routine, timetable. I think we can attune our children to the longer schooling hours, especially if your child does preschool for half a day rather than a full day. Talk to them about the idea of getting ready for school, how to play with peers, what is the right way and respectful way of playing with one another, right? Setting up a routine for homework, because homework will be one of those things that in P1 they will gradually start to have to get used to. Show your child how to pack their school bag for the day. I think these are some things that we can actually work together with. You can maybe create, for example, with them a simple timetable, okay? And if let's say based on this simple timetable, what are the things that you need to pack inside a school bag? Ask them things like soft toys. Do you think that we are able to pack in soft toys into the school bag now that you're going to primary school? Because it takes up space. It makes the school bag heavier, right? So some of these decisions that your child can probably work alongside with you. So to continue on this respect of how can we help our children prepare for this transition, talk to our children, talk to them about primary school, because we provide awareness for them, expectations, also to help them allay fears and anxiety, because they can come into the school, there will be buddies, there will be other children in the class, there will be the bigger cocos and CCS that they can look forward to actually getting help from, the teachers as well as other staff of the school. I would like to suggest some things that you can do right now at home to help to build independence in our children. For example, packing their own school bag. If they're going to preschool, right now, they should definitely try and pack their own school bag. Water bottles, pencil cases, what are the things they need to have in their school bag. Ensure that your child tidies up after playing and eating, right? Make sure that they are helping you at home. Not to just play, leave a mess, and then they will run away after that, because they need to know the whole idea of being independent, responsibility, accountability. Perhaps you can also try to teach him or her how to buy food when they are at the coffee shops or the food courts, right? Because that might be a good way to get started. Naturally, we don't expect the children to already be able to count money and how to actually actually observe and see what the notes are. We can try. We can definitely try teaching them. There's no expectation that they must be able to do that at this stage. It's all right. When they come into P1, our teachers will also be able to guide us. But I think knowing that they will come into the canteen, being expected to be able to queue up and to buy food, I think is useful to get them started a little bit. Impress upon your child the importance of being responsible for his or her own items. When they lose things, they need to also understand how precious these items are because they are bought using money as well, so that they can be more responsible for them. Get them to help out with household chores. They are never too young to start. Actually, you will be able to notice, I think some of our children, by the time they come to N2, K1, K2, actually they do develop the interest in helping you to say water the plants, wash a few bowls at home. You know, sometimes when they want to do these things, allow them to help out. So once in a while, they may accidentally break the plates while they're actually doing these things. It's our risk appetite at the end of the day. But I think I want to encourage parents. I think some of these things we probably want to encourage them to do that. I think a couple of other things that I thought might be useful for us to do at home. Let's role model the importance of reading. Read to your child during before bedtime, be it in the English language as well as mother tongue language medium books. I think it's useful for us to really show them and inculcate that love for reading. Because the moment they come to P1 all the way to P6, we have silent reading time, and we always encourage our children that they must have their books with them to do silent reading. And I think part of this is how can we then provide a very print-rich environment at home and give our children access to appropriate books everywhere. Maybe I'll just, for this first segment, leave a quote for all our parents here. That I think the best gift for our children is this. And let me read out a quote from Carol Dweck, who is an American educationist, who wrote this book called Mindset. You may actually know about this growth mindset theory that came from Carol Dweck. If parents want to give their children a gift, the best thing they can do is to teach their children to love challenges, be intrigued by mistakes, enjoy effort, and keep learning. That way, their children don't have to be slaves of praise. They will have a lifelong way to build and repair their own confidence. Right? I think you will probably experience that as they come into primary school, they will make more and more mistakes. They will actually face more and more challenges. But if they are going to be excited by these challenges, excited by these things that they feel that I'm actually learning and I'm growing, I think that's what we really want to achieve with our children. And a lot of my primary one children start off coming to school. Some of them are jittery about coming into primary school, which is very, very normal. But how do we encourage them to actually go have that love for challenges and keep trying? So let me go on to the second part about choosing a primary school. I think some things that we will try and address in this session as well will be why choosing a right primary school matters to you. What are some factors when we are looking at primary school choice? The different phases, although for the different phases, all this information can be easily found on the MOE's website as well. So I won't go in great detail. And how do you help your child transit from preschool to primary school? I've already mentioned some tips. I'll mention just a few more probably along the way. So choice of primary school definitely matters, and I would like to encourage parents, let's go beyond just choosing a primary school based on the brand name, the popularity, or the results of the school. Because let's put it in perspective. We will have heard of many schools, like for example, your Nanyang. You will heard of schools like River Valley Primary and so on and so forth, who have, these are schools that have got a reputation and they have been around in the system for many, many years. Nanyang, for example, is an extremely popular school along the Bukit Timah belt. But we do have to ask ourselves sometimes that it's not just about the brand name of the school, but what does the school stand for? And is the school a good fit for your child? At the end of the day, Nanyang has got a certain brand, has got a certain philosophy that is behind that actually anchors its education. And it will be a school that will be quite good in terms of its fit for quite a lot of children in Singapore. But likewise, schools like Admiralty Primary School, schools like Greenwood, around this area, Greenwood, Evergreen Primary, has got its own brand and what it actually stands for when it comes to primary level education. And that's why we will actually encourage you to really take a look at these different schools. Other things to think about: distance from home, availability of student care center on site near to the school, And in our school, we do have our own student care center here that is under this company called Learning Harbor. It's called Learning Harbor Student Care Center. In the vicinity as well, there are other student care centers, and we do have children going to both the school-based ones as well as the ones outside. So you may have heard of student care center outside called Play Facto as an example, right? These are different SCCs that are based in different parts in Singapore. So other things about your own family values, I think you will want to also think about such things as well. The quality of teaching and learning in the school, and whether it's a co-ed versus a non-co-ed school. Co-ed means that it has both boys as well as girls. Admiralty Primary School is a school that has both boys and girls. Okay, a lot of information here. Let me just very quickly summarize for you what is on this slide. I had mentioned about how most schools start at 7:30, same for Admiralty Primary. So you definitely want to factor in travel time. I think if you were to ask me as an example, when I was deciding the school for my girl, who is in P1 this year, upon discussion with my wife, we were very clear that I didn't want my girl to wake up before 6 o'clock. I thought that 6 o'clock was the earliest that she would wake up. And hence, in terms of the vicinity of school, I do drive. That helps. I guess then in the end, when we made the decision to say, okay, because I need to drive her to school, then I need to quickly come to school. So how would that work out for my schedule? Right. So something for parents for you to actually definitely take into consideration. Longer hours in primary school, especially when it comes to P3 to P6s because of CCAs, extra classes, these are to be expected. So the timing that is required for them to actually travel back home. Do you wish for your child to go back home independently, or is it that you will come and pick them up? These are different things to consider. Okay. Just now I mentioned about student care center. Understanding the school culture in relation to your family values, I think some things to think about. There are some schools in Singapore that have a religious connection. For example, some of our mission schools, because they were founded by churches, right, or clan-based school. So these are different schools that have different types of connections. Admiralty Primary School is not one of these schools. So we are a government school, so to speak. And so these are different things that you will probably want to consider when you're considering your primary school or choice for your child. Okay. Beyond that, I think what is important to know is what are some of these special programs, so to speak, that different schools have. If you to go to the Admiralty Primary School website, you'll be able to see some of the programs, signature programs that my school has. One of which is about the Applied Learning Program, which is design thinking for sustainability. So we do teach all our students from primary 1 all the way to primary 6, the design thinking framework. How do you use design thinking as a way to actually solve problems? So critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, they actually come in as part of this Applied Learning Program. My other signature program in the school is called Learning for Life program, the Lifelong Learning Program, which is about performance character. So how do we build in our children the idea of growth mindset to achieve high performance, right? And some of these things that we actually develop in our children, the different skills, the different mindsets, character skills are things that we actually develop in them from primary 1 all the way until primary 6. Along the way, when it comes to P2, towards the end of P2, that's when your child will have to start to think about CCAs. And what are some of these CCAs that they may be interested in, because they will get started in P3 all the way until P6. And CCAs are one of those other kinds of programs that will allow your child to acquire new skills beyond just the academics, and they are extremely important, and it is a very key element of our primary level education. They build new skills, we hone the character of our children during CCA. So things like team spirit, perseverance, tenacity. And if parents, you may have heard of things like DSA, for example. If your child has got a certain talent in some areas, for example, if they have got a talent in Wushu, or they have a talent in track and field, these are some of the areas where they can actually think about, because in primary 6, there are a couple of ways that you can actually go through, different routes that you can go through to secondary school, one of which is through DSA, the other one is via the PSLE results. And CCAs are often one of those platforms for our students to develop their interests, to the skills that they actually develop beyond just interest level, and to some extend actually the performance excellence. And that's when they can also apply for secondary school of their choice via DSA. But that comes later. Quality of teaching and learning in a school. Just now, like I mentioned, I mean, we have programs like ALP, LLP. In Admiralty Primary School, a very big part of our quality teaching and learning is also how do we infuse ICT skills into our teaching and learning in the classroom. I'll mention that a little bit to a greater extent later. About co-ed versus non-co-ed schools, I think this is something which you may also want to consider. Being in a co-ed school, it helps your child to actually get ready and get prepared for what the real world looks like, because you do have children from different genders when they are mingling and interacting in a primary school. Right? In a secondary school, quite a lot of secondary schools are also non-co-ed. So if you do have the intention to want your child to be a non-co-ed school in secondary school, then perhaps for primary school, you may want to consider, would a co-ed school be good for them? Because it is going through 6 years when they have exposure and interaction to friends from different gender as well. Right? Okay. Also, if let's say your child is already in the school, there's priority in phase 1 because of the sibling who is studying in the same school. So for the third part, I'll just talk a little bit about primary 1 registration and the requirements. For the first phase, phase 1 is for children who has a sibling that is studying in the primary school. That is the first priority phase. Phase 2A is for children whose parents or sibling is a former student of the primary school, so alumni. All right. This includes those who have joined the Alumni Association. Since a few years ago, MOE has already collapsed the phases. If some of you may be aware, something called phase 2A1 and 2A2. 2A1 used to be for those who had signed up to be members of the Alumni Association, and 2A2 if you are an alumni, old boy or old girl of the school, but you didn't sign up for the association. So that has already been collapsed already. If parents are members of the school advisory committee, right, they will also qualify for phase 2A, parents who is a staff member of the primary school. For our school, take note, the last bullet point, we do not have a MOE kindergarten, so it doesn't apply for us for phase 2A. Phase 2B will be for children whose parent has joined the primary school as a parent volunteer. But just to take note, if you are looking at registering your child for P1 this year, because they are going to P1 next year, okay, that means, let me repeat that. If you are registering this year for P1 next year, you wouldn't qualify for this part under parent volunteer anymore, because you would have had to sign up starting from last year, that you will have to do 40 hours of parent volunteering hours with our school. Okay, so for parent volunteers with our school, then if you have fulfilled that 40 hours, you will qualify under phase 2. The second bullet point is about if let's say it's a member who is endorsed by a church or clan, but we don't have this particular affiliation. The third bullet point is if you are an active community leader, your child will also qualify under phase 2B. Phase 2C are for children who have not yet registered in a primary school. Okay, so for 2C supplementary, it's again for under phase 2C, if let's say not yet registered, goes under 2C supplementary. And the last phase, phase 3, is for international students. So please do take note of that. Let me just give you an example of some of the trends for intake to Admiralty Primary School over the past few years since 2020. I'll just use 2023 as an example. Under phase 1, just now earlier I mentioned is about siblings of the school. We had a total of 75 last year that came in because they have siblings in the school. Phase 2A is under the alumni phase, as well as the staff of the school. And then phase 2B, 33, is because you will see it as for those who are actually parent volunteers with the school, as well as those who are community leaders. And under phase 2C, we had 70 parents 70 students who actually enrolled with our school under phase 2C. Okay, just to take note for, I think some of the parents here who may be thinking of using a caregiver's address as the registration. Okay, when we are registering for P1 registration, the default is to use the parent's official residential address that's reflected on your NRIC. For caregivers that are living within 2 km, you will need to actually do what we call a declaration of alternative childcare arrangement online. Okay, so there are some eligibility criteria. You and your spouse will be working full time at the time of declaration, and so your child is under the care of a grandparent or parent sibling, for example, right? So that then you want to do that declaration that is using the caregiver arrangements address. And if you do use the caregiver's address, if your caregiver's address is within 2 km of the school, then what happens is that your child, if any balloting, will be balloted together with those of the same citizenship type that is living within 1 to 2 km. Okay, so even if let's say you are living very, very near 0.5 km, extremely near to the school, that means within 1 km, but because you are using a caregiver's address, and that is a declaration that you're making, if there's any balloting, you will need to be balloted together with the 1 to 2 km same citizenship. Now, then the next part is that if it falls outside of 2 km, then the balloting will also take place with those who are outside of 2 km. All right, so just take note of this. Also to highlight, there is something what we call a 30-month stay requirement. It is something stipulated by MOE, not by our school. It's for all MOE schools and it's on MOE's website. If a child gains priority admission through distance category, so let's say, for example, any balloting that takes place, you actually admitted to the school via priority admission, you need to ensure that you're residing at the address used for the registration for at least 30 months from the start of the P1 registration exercise. Okay. In cases where the 30-month stay requirement is not met, that means within this 30-month stay, you actually change address and move. MOE will actually transfer your child to another school or with vacancies because the priority admission for your school of choice was actually based on your declared address for registration. And this way of doing, MOE is trying to ensure that there's no gaming in the system. Okay, so we'd like to seek all parents' understanding of this. Order of priority admission. Okay, let me show you in a short while what is the order. Since 2012, for our P1 registration exercise, Singapore citizens will have absolute priority over permanent residents, especially when balloting is required. So if the number of applicants actually within each category, it exceeds the number of vacancies, balloting will take place, okay, and then that's when the homeschool distance will also come in after the Singapore citizenship. So let me just show you that priority of admission. First and foremost, Singapore citizens within that 1 km of school, then Singapore citizens between 1 to 2 km, SCs outside 2 km, then it goes on to the PRs. So that's the order of priority admission, especially when a balloting is required. All right, I understand some of the questions are coming in from parents. We will be responding to these questions along the way. So I hope that the questions are able to address your, I hope the responses are able to address your questions. If it still doesn't address your questions at the end of this presentation, feel free to raise them again. Okay, let me give you a balloting scenario, okay? Because I'm using phase 2B as an example because last year for the school, Admiralty Primary School, we needed balloting at phase 2B. So let's say we have got 20 vacancies at phase 2B and 25 children have registered under phase 2B because 20 are from parent volunteer scheme and another 5 are active community leaders. So what you take a look at the table, what happens is that under Singapore citizens, because we have most of them, 23 of them who are Singapore citizens, 2 of them are PRs, what happens is that we will be looking at Singapore citizens first. You will notice that 10 are within 1 km, 13 are within 1 to 2 km, and then but 0 are outside of 2 km. And so we have 23. So end up we have 23 Singapore citizens for 20 places, 20 vacancies. So you know immediately, actually, the 10 within the 1 km will be able to gain the entry to the school. But out of the 13, we will have to ballot. Because the 13 that is between 1 to 2 km, they will require balloting. And hence, what happens is that the 10 successfully admitted within 1 km, 10 that were because of the balloting between 1 to 2 km are successful, but then 3 were unsuccessful due to the balloting, right? So this is just an example of how the balloting works. For PRs, naturally, they will not be successful under phase 2B, but they can try again for phase 2C. The same thing actually applies for the 3 Singapore citizens who were balloted out at Phase 2B. You can try under Phase 2C. Okay, for this part, I just wanted to then also give some information about Admiralty Primary School and what we have to offer in this school. This is the vision and mission of our school. Our vision is to inspire, to have our children to be inspiring and empathetic leaders with a strong global outlook. It is comprehensive in nature and it's meant to be because we want our children to be inspiring, but not just inspiring, but having that heart for others, right? When we talk about inspiring, it's also that being an inspiration to other people through our pursuit for excellence as an example, to be able to have that heart to understand what others are going through. Leadership is a very big skill that we wish to develop in every single one of our admirals. So it's not just our leaders in the school, not just the student leaders, but every single admiral. And having that strong global outlook is so that they have this idea about what is happening outside of the world. We are not just looking at Singapore and Admiralty Primary School. So we go beyond that. Our mission is to nurture compassionate citizens and lifelong learners. So what are our school values? As an admiral, that's why I told them we call our children here admirals. They will be gracious and kind towards others, responsible for their actions, work, and belongings, have integrity, right? To be honest, to own up from the mistakes, and to grow from there, and to be good team player. So you see that this is the acronym of GRIT, and grit is our last value. So we have a total of 5 school values, where grit is about the idea of perseverance, grit, and we want them to actually go towards pursuit of excellence. I won't go in detail about this, but just to share with you, we have a school team as well. And because to our admirals, especially the younger ones, we wanted to make it simple for them to understand what are certain things that they need to actually build over the years in order to achieve our school vision. So we had these ideas of how do we grow together. Gratitude, courage, and excellence are some things that we wanted them to develop as key traits, right? So gratitude is the idea that, have an attitude of gratitude so as to build compassion, to build empathy. Courage is to get them to overcome their fears, because a lot of our children coming into a new setting, there will definitely be some things that they'll be fearful about. So it's not about them being fearless, but how do we overcome our fears? And if we want them to be leaders, we want them to serve with courage. Okay, there's this whole idea that, having the courage to embark on a lifelong journey of learning. And excellence is something at Admiralty Primary School that we pride upon. We see it as a lifelong pursuit. We want them to develop this as a habit, not just a journey and destination. So it's not just about, for example, it's just your PSLE and your PSLE results. It's not that. But if let's say indeed you do have a goal of achieving good PSLE results, then your excellence journey has to start now. Okay? The idea of thinking global, act local, right? Because we want them to be inspired to actually solve global challenges. So dream big, start small. They are admirals in Admiralty Primary School, but we want them to actually tackle challenges that are bigger than themselves and bigger than our school. I won't go in detail about our achievements and beliefs, but I think if parents, you have the chance to also ask around in terms of the reputation of Admiralty Primary School, in terms of the brand of education that we stand for, I think we have our established strong reputation in the Woodlands community. It's not just about the good performance in the academic results and national exams. I think it goes beyond that. I think it's the whole idea about academics, non-academics. What is this holistic education that we are actually developing for our children? So these are certain things that we actually do for our top performers, our children who are able to achieve good results, is also because we want to stretch them. For some of our students coming in, who, of course, do not have the required literacy as well as numeracy skills at the start, we make sure that we have those baseline standards to help them achieve them and to actually stretch them and grow beyond them. Right? One of those bullet points that you will see there, engaging them through ICT-enabled lessons. You have heard this is a very AI-powered kind of world in the future. I don't think that we want our students to be behind the curve when it comes to that. Right? So within the right means, appropriate means, we will be exposing our students to ICT kind of lessons We want to actually expose to them to different tools that they can be using so that given the right tools and the right kinds of responsibility, that in future they know how to actually handle when they have technology in their hands. In our school, we are quite big on heightening considerations to join secondary school of choice via DSA. Okay, so just to share a little bit about some of our extended programs, I think when we talk about the main curriculum, it's actually rather similar across all the primary schools. So what are other things that we do offer in Admiralty Primary School? This is just an example of what we offer as part of our English language curriculum. Our students do go through English literature, and I think we look at English literature is not just to stretch our students per se, but to actually grow in them that appreciation for different literary texts, right? Because when we are reading, we want them to read to appreciate, read to comprehend. And there's so many different types of writers out there, authors, and different types of texts. By getting them to actually engage English literature, we are actually allowing them to actually adopt different types of perspectives. So even in future, even if they don't go into literature per se, but I think that it actually develops a certain muscle in them, right? The ability to appreciate English literature. In Chinese language, they also have their own literature program. Festivals are a big thing in our school as well. So for example, our Mid-Autumn Festival, we do it as an entire school kind of like event and program, where the children will actually get a chance to actually go through different stalls, understand the meaning of Mid-Autumn Festival. So for example, it's not just Mid-Autumn Festival, Ramadan, the meaning of Ramadan, the meaning of Pongal, right? Pongal and why is it that we celebrate Pongal in Singapore as well? And these are all different events and different festives that our mother tongue department actually take it upon themselves to say that we want to inculcate that love for our heritage a lot more, right? Based on the different mother tongue languages that we have. Poetry is something that we also do in classes and different kinds of activities that we give to parents to do at home. So just now earlier, if you recall, I made it a point to try and ask parents to think about how we can give our children that kind of environment, a print-rich environment for them to be able to read both their mother tongue language medium books at home as well as the English language books. Because I think reading as a habit needs to start very, very young. Okay, so these are just some other examples of mother tongue languages, some of the different activities that they do. Okay, so just another slide on that. Speech and drama program, show and tell. This show and tell is not just for our mother tongue, actually English language also, we do have these things. Okay, so this is for science. And in science, we have this thing called family science activities as well. And the idea that we want to actually make it fun, interactive for our children. At the P4 level, just to share with everyone that at our P4 level, our students actually do a science investigative project. So they will pick up some of these skills that towards the end of the year, they are expected to put up a project to share their findings with the school community, to actually share with everyone what is the project all about and what are the conclusions and findings. And the whole idea here is to make science learning actually fun and relevant, because a very big thing about science is indeed they're so applicable to the real life. And hence bringing this very real life nature of science into the classroom is important for us. Right, so some of these things that they actually do as part of family science at home as well. For mathematics, similarly, I think one of the very big things about math is to get our students to understand mathematical concepts. The mathematical thinking muscle memory is something that we actually do want our children to be able to develop. Right, the critical thinking skills, mathematical thinking skills and ability, it has to start young. And one of the ways to actually do it is conceptual thinking and understanding. To be able to make mathematics learning very relevant for our students, they must be able to see how it's applicable in real life. So in one of these pictures, you can see our two girls who are in the supermarket actually taking some of these items, right? So the whole idea here is to get them to see that mathematics is really everywhere. And why they are doing all these things at home is because we do have some activities that require them to actually bring math home, bring math out to the real life, get parents to be involved as part of it as well. And these are the pictures they have taken and they have uploaded onto our student learning space, SLS. Okay, so we do have math at lunch kind of activities to drive that kind of enthusiasm. So I think in the picture on the bottom left, you will see lots of students who are queuing up to try all these puzzles. And at the end of the day, because they actually solve certain puzzles, they get a small little gift from it. But it really does drive that kind of passion and motivate our students to learn math. Okay, just now I did mention in Admiralty Primary School, we do have something called one-to-one device learning. And the way that we do it is that starting from the P4 level and above, we do get our children to purchase iPads or any devices that maybe parents, some of you have got your own devices at home, and you prefer instead of buying a new device to actually allow your child to use these devices in school. We do have a lot of questions from parents about the use of these devices in school. Not to worry too much about it at this stage because it starts only in, the purchase actually starts in P3 or P4 usage and all. We will have our town hall sessions with parents nearer to those when your child is coming to P3, so not to worry too much about that. But I think the whole idea here is they use these devices responsibly in the classroom, but at the same time, there is a device management kind of app that we will get parents to actually download as well. School will help with the downloading. The co-payment between school and parents is so that we can ensure that the device is being used very safely and responsibly, and we don't need to worry about that. And we can actually reap the benefits of your child using technology in school, being guided by the teachers. So these are just some examples of what the students actually engage in when they are using devices. I think the whole idea here is that when they use devices, they can solve problems like this, right? Sorry, the picture is flipped, but they are actually looking at that using a real life problem about how HDB flat is, how tall it is, so on and so forth, and to solve mathematical problems. Right? As well as digital art, you can see that one of the pictures here is about digital artwork. So we do see the benefits of having devices placed in our children's hands. And when our admirals are able to use it responsibly, they are able to achieve an even higher level of thinking and learning using devices because that augments and that strengthens teaching and learning. Right? So I think that is the way that we are actually going towards. At Admiralty Primary School, we have started using and we trialed the use of these devices ever since 2013. So we have been on this journey for actually really quite a few years. You may have heard of what Minister Chan Chun Sing actually mentioned last year during our MOE work plan seminar, the idea of going towards the EdTech master plan, right? How do we bring educational technology into the classroom? And I think that Admiralty Primary School is at a very good stage where we are able to bring this to a higher level because of the fact that we have started this quite early on. Mentioned about some of the other activities that your child can actually expect to have if you were to join Admiralty Primary School. P1 and P2, they engage in something called Program for Active Learning. So beyond the academics of English, math, as well as mother tongue, they will learn things like outdoor education, performing arts, other kinds of games and sports they will be exposed to, visual arts. CCAs when they're in P3 to P6, and then our school goes into a very big way to guide our children to think a little bit deeper about how to use direct school admissions for their secondary school choice, as well as how do we actually place our secondary school choice wisely in order to actually get to the school of their choices. I talked a little bit about this as well, about CCAs. In our school, we have a total of 19 CCAs. We may or may not be sticking with 19 CCAs because actually, if we were to look around to different primary schools, 19 CCAs is actually the most that we have it was one of the most that we have amongst primary schools. We are looking at the possibility of consolidating a few of the CCAs here so that we have a good number of students within one CCA. We are able to devote the resources in terms of not just budget, but also in terms of the teachers, so that we can intensify the teaching and learning that's taking place in each of these CCAs. Right, but we have a very, very good variety of different types of CCAs, be it performing arts here, uniform groups, clubs and societies, as well as sports. So these are just some pictures about performing arts, our uniform groups, and our admirals in both the Scouts as well as the Brownies have been doing very, very well over the past few years. always going for top honors and challenging for the badges that they can get. The clubs and societies, the different things that our students are exposed to. And these are some pictures from sports. We are one of those schools with sports, like for example, football. We have a sports and games club, CCA, where it is a bit more modular in the approach. So some of our students will actually take part in badminton. So national schools games are happening around this season. So they are taking part in badminton, they are taking part in things like chokeball. And just last year, we actually did very, very well in chokeball. In one of the categories, we came back as the champions. So there's rope skipping and wushu. So some of the sports in our amongst our CCAs. I mentioned this about our Learning for Life program, performance character for personal leadership. I won't go into the details too much because I mentioned is the whole idea here is that based on growth mindset, the idea of growth mindset, how do we help our children to achieve their highest potential? We have a very structured and spiral curriculum kind of approach to help our children from P1 all the way to P6 to be able to build some of these ideas, character skills, as well as key character traits that they have. And then parents, I think one way of looking at your different primary schools that you may be quite interested in is to take a look at the LLP as well as the ALP that the schools offer. So in Admiralty Primary School as well, why we chose such an LLP is because we believe that by building these skills into our children, I think we are setting them up not just for academic excellence, it's actually for life, right? If they are able to build some of these character skills, you can imagine that in life, we are talking about children with that kind of confidence, with that kind of mentality and mindset that they want to pursue excellence. And these are skills that they actually stick with them. These are personalities that can be grown in them from the young all the way until they grow up to adulthood. Our ALP, just now I mentioned about design thinking for sustainability. So at the bottom, you will see the framework. We will teach our students about importance of empathy, how do we define the problem, ideate together with friends, prototype, and then we do some testing. And you will see that these are important things that our children will need to go through in order to become strong innovators for the future, solve problems, and be critical in their thinking. Okay, so these are just some pictures, how they have applied their learning. Cross-cultural skills is something that is very big in the school as well, because we do want to expose them to different cultures, different heritage in Singapore. And also starting from next year, in 2025 onwards, we will be looking to expose our children by bringing them overseas as well. Right? So these kinds of exposure for our students are really meant to actually grow their horizons, grow their perspectives beyond just Singapore. So being a school within this community, this larger community of Woodlands and the Sembawang West area, I think we really want our children to be able to contribute back towards the community. It starts off with making sure that all our students build leadership skills, right? And I think in our school, we do have these leadership opportunities that all our children can look forward to. Either class leaders, peer support leaders, CCA leaders, as well as prefects. We are quite big on environmental sustainability. And just this year itself, a lot of our children went out to represent the school. And in this picture on the bottom left, you will see the lady in red is actually our MP. And our students themselves, when the MP was walking around, happened to see her walking and then engage in her in terms of the projects that we are doing in the school. So these are the kinds of projects that our students are able to actually do and to create. Just some further considerations. I'm onto my last couple of slides already for parents to consider when you are choosing the primary school. Admiralty Primary School as a school of choice that I would like you to consider. These are our reporting times as well as dismissal time for our levels. For P1s and 2s on Mondays, because of CCA, they do not need to report that early. They will report at 10 o'clock and dismissal time is at 2:40. But just to take note, these kinds of timings, of course, they are subject to change. When we do review our timetable, sometimes we do review the timings for reporting as well as dismissal. But largely, this is the kind of timing that we're looking at. So for dismissal time, it's the same for all the levels, and our P3s to P6s will report to school at 7:30 every day. So take note of these things when you are thinking about the school of your choice. Distance ought to be something that is at the back of your considerations. Okay, just now I mentioned already about for CCA arrangements. So take note, we do have in our school a vendor that we bring in that does enrichment classes for P1s and 2s. If you're not able to look after the children at home, you need some kind of childcare arrangement, you can consider this for enrichment classes, right? But do take note that because you are bringing in a vendor, this is very much for your own at your own arrangement and payment. So it's not compulsory, it's optional. So these are some of the other examples of student care centers that are outside of our school. You can take a picture here if it helps in terms of the numbers of these places that you can contact to find out from them some of the offerings that they have. Student care centers that are beyond Admiralty Primary School. The one that is in our school is the Learning Harbor. So if you wish to find out a little bit more, actually Learning Harbor has got its own website as well, or you can just write into the school. We can provide some details too. Okay, so some other things for arrangements based on the fees for 2024. If you are looking at a school bus, these are some of the fees. All right. Take note, because we are an MOE school, there are subsidies that are also provided for our students from from financially challenged backgrounds. So do not let money be one of those considerations. Overly worried about that will hinder you from applying to a school. Because I think the school will always be able to support and help you along the way. I think as long as you approach the school, let us know what are some of the challenges that you may face so that we can work with you. So in Admiralty Primary School, I think one of those questions from parents will always be about the ICT device that they may need to purchase from P3 onwards. And again, what we always try and tell parents is that don't be overly worried about it. Speak to us, right? If we did take a look at the backgrounds that the child is from, and are there some finances in terms of financially challenged backgrounds that we need to look into, we will always be able to come in and support and help. Right, so that's it for my sharing. It has been a rather long sharing, but I hope that that hour of sharing has given you good information that you can consider, especially if you are really thinking hard about whether Admiralty Primary School will be a good school of choice for you, for your child. All right. We will take a few more minutes to actually see if there are other further questions. Feel free to just type it into the chat box, and I will be able to answer your question. Okay. Hi, sorry. So there is a question about, can parents go into the school on in the first 2 days of school? Okay, let me just share what are our plans at this point in time. But do take note, I think give us a little bit of time to work out the exact details of it. One of the days where you can definitely look forward to coming into school is during our orientation at the end of the year. At the end of this year, if your child is successful in getting into Admiralty Primary School, and if that is your school of choice, we will usually have a face-to-face orientation where the children come in. Parents, you will get to come in, and that you will be able to see the school facilities. We will be able to actually speak to parents on this, and you can engage us. As for our face-to-face when your child is starting P1, we will likely be able to allow parents to come in on the first day of school. And at this point in time, I'm still in discussion with the team. We will look at the possibility of you all being able to observe how your children are actually queuing up, buying food, so on and so forth. So you will have the engagement, not just with myself as well as some of my heads, but also you will hear from us, but at the same time, you may be able to observe your child during recess time. All right. So that is something that we are working towards for the first day of school in next year, in 2025. Second day of school, because that is when all the P2s to P6s will be coming back to school already. Unfortunately, we will not be able to allow parents to come in to the school and stay with your child because all the students are back in school. So I hope to see your understanding on this. Okay. Okay, second question on how much daily allowance do students need for meals? My suggestion is that, okay, for a start, probably you can, on the side of caution, may want to give them something like $2.50 to about $3 per day. I think thereabouts it will suffice. I give my child about $2.50. for her own school as well. So it has so far worked out well. And I think we also do want to build in our children the concept of, the importance of money, right? So they should spend it wisely on things that they really need to buy, right? We will be teaching children along the way. If they're able to save up a little bit on their own, give them a piggy bank so that they can see for themselves coming back home, they can save the money. Now, I'm talking about it from a physical money coins point of view. Because in our school, we also have a smart buddy where they can use the watch, right? And or they can actually use the tap card to actually tap to actually pay using the EasyLink. But take note, I think when they are paying through this method, I think we also still want to inculcate them with them the ability to know how much have you spent today. So usually 250 is about the amount, $250, $3. And if you feel that actually even $3 is too much for them, you may want to maybe work out the certain sum with them along the way as well. Okay, the next question, is it only talented students can join in the CCA that they are interested to go into too? Just to share with you how the way that we do CCA selection is this. Towards the end of P2, we will be actually giving feedback to the parents on our teachers' observations of your child throughout the entire 2 years, P1 and P2. Is there a certain inclination? Is there a certain disposition that your child has towards? For example, maybe during the dance modules of your PAL lesson, your child is actually shown that your child really has got the hand-eye coordination, can dance quite well, has that poise, posture, and so on and so forth. Then in terms of the feedback that's given to the parents, we will indicate, right, that these are the areas that we think is actually your child's strengths, your child's inclination and dispositions. Your child will also be able to go through a CCA open house, right? And in that CCA open house, they will see for themselves all the different CCAs, talk to their seniors, and we do want the students, the P2 admirals themselves, to develop their understanding so that they can come home, they can also share with the parents, look at the school website. Then you can actually put down your choice of your CCA. And we give all our students 3 choices to choose from, right? Choice 1, 2, and 3, we will aim to always try as far as possible to give them one of the 3 choices. But we want to seek parents' understanding. We may not always be able to give the first choice or the second choice to all the children. There are so many students in one level. If we were to give everyone their first choice, we may end up not having enough students for other CCAs as well. But at the same time, we want all our students to go in with an open mind, go in and try out the different types of CCAs that we have on offer. All of them will be able to help the child develop a certain area of interest. Okay, I hope that answers your question. I saw okay, let's see. What is the timing when each of the phase application results be posted? I think Mr. Humphrey is answering that at this point in time in writing. Do take note of the application phase period on MOE's website. All right, because I think MOE's website is always the most updated and you must follow the MOE website. Okay, how does the school support students who require additional academic assistance or enrichment? Okay, so academic assistance, let me put it this way, that we have, after a few weeks of, if we are talking about primary 1 as an example, after a few weeks that a teacher has observed the child, they will be able to actually say whether or not the child requires certain assistance in areas, for example, like literacy or numeracy. And that is when the form teachers will get in touch with parents to actually suggest certain things that they can do. Sometimes it will also involve the form teachers actually letting you know, maybe on certain days, I may actually get your child to stay back a little bit for say 10 minutes, 15 minutes to help him or her with some of the reading skills, right? This is just an example. And so that's why that partnership between parents as well as the school, especially the form teachers, is extremely important. Let's be very, very open. Sometimes, when we hear such things from our form teachers saying that your child is probably lagging behind a little bit in this area, it doesn't always sound good, right? Because as parents, we will feel, oh dear, my child is a bit behind. But I think it's in the whole spirit of saying that I'm giving you this feedback as early as we can because I want to work with you to help the child. We have also at the primary 1 level to primary 2, something called LSP and LSM, Learning Support Program, as well as Learning Support for Mathematics. LSP is for English language, LSM is for mathematics. There is a certain way of trying to identify students who will benefit for LSP and LSM. We always want to do that because when we are able to get hold of these students as early as possible, additional help is given to them. Okay, so this is what is happening at the youngest levels, right? Your P1s and P2s. But as we progress over the years, especially in P6s, because they are preparing for a PSLE as well, we do have structured programs, remediation programs from them after school to help them with their academics. Okay. All right. Let me answer the. Okay, so the question on P1 having buddy system with older students, Mrs. Lim is answering in writing. Let me answer the next one. Is it expected by the school for students to receive tuition outside of school? I have a very quick answer to that. And my direct answer to that is no. There's no expectation of the school for the children to receive tuition outside. In fact, actually, if you look at the school calendar, our children to a certain extent is already quite poor thing. They will stay on in school and they have so much activities that is so happening. School life is really very, very happening. And they are so engaged in all these things, which allow them to develop a very holistic kind of education. So my take has always been that let's do it on a case-by-case basis, right? I also, at the end of the day, parents, I know that it is up to you to decide whether you want to bring your child for tuition. But very often, our recommendation is always that we don't think that your child requires tuition per se. If your child is actually lagging behind, very often we have our library that is open. We do have our teachers that actually help our children. And that is through remediation. And that is always the best way, because our teachers are in the best position to be able to advise the child as well as advise you which are the areas that your child may lack in. I do have some children here, despite doing very well in school, have got tuition classes outside. And very often when we speak to them, they tell us that they're actually very, very tired because they have homework from school. Then when they go to tuition, they have homework from tuition. And sometimes they're doing their homework from school at tuition. And you see that that actually snowballs. And very often, actually, what our children need might be rest, quality rest, so that they can come back to school fresh, able to engage in class, and then they go back home, do the work that is necessary, and that is actually the most sufficient for them. But sometimes we actually say that our children are not hardworking enough. They seem to be very lazy and all. But I think let's look at ourselves. We always need our own me time, right? So to speak, our own time when we need unwind. Actually, similarly for our children as well. After a long day in school, sometimes CCAs after school as well, because some of our CCAs, we got additional sessions after school. They have structured lessons for the P6s, right? Other kinds of different types of activities in school. They go back really late. And I think they need a bit of time to unwind before they get started on their homework again. So if you to ask me what is the most important thing that we do need to grow in our children is that sense of discipline and a sense of routine. If we can build that kind of discipline and the routine in them, we don't even need that tuition. They go back home, they do their own revision, they do their own homework. They don't understand certain things. If they can turn to daddy, mommy for help, that's great. If we can't because daddy, mommy are busy working and all, next day come to school, come back to school with the independence of mind to ask their friends, to ask the teachers. I think that's really the best way to go about doing it. Okay, I hope that I have answered that question. How do we communicate with my child's form teacher if there's a need to? Is it via email or through PG? Okay, through the form teacher, different form teachers will have different ways of communicating with the class parents. Most of the form teachers in my school currently do have something called Class Dojo. You may be quite familiar with that. Some form teachers do set up WhatsApp chat groups. Some form teachers, I hope you also see your understanding, are very clear. Class Dojo, WhatsApp chat groups, these are all done with the parents until a certain time. And we do protect that time for our teachers. They do need that rest time as well. It's until 6 o'clock for the day where we actually message. Anything beyond that, we see understanding, they will probably respond on another day. Okay. Otherwise, what some form teachers may do is that they will actually interact with you via emails, right? They will send emails to you. You can reply via email, and we do ask the form teachers to actually reply within a certain number of days. Give them some time to reply to your emails as well. Because honestly, unlike the principal as well as the VPs, where a very big part of our role is really indeed the emails that come in. For teachers, actually their bread and butter is teaching in the classroom, is preparation for their lessons. So to expect them to be at the emails, replying emails, it's actually not, they won't be as fast replying the emails, but we do give them some time, maybe a couple of days, 3 days, to actually respond to the email. So if let's say you do have very urgent matters, you do need to actually get in touch with your form teacher, then my suggestion is either through Class Dojo, through the WhatsApp chat group that your form teacher has set up with the child, or if not, sometimes through the school. Feel free, you can write into the school. We have a Admiralty address email they can write into the school, as well as PG is also one of those ways, but write into the school. We can and call in the school. We will always be able to help with that. Okay. Is there a fast track and normal track class start from P3 in Admiralty Primary School? No, there isn't any fast track or normal track class. So maybe if I can also just clarify a little bit, in the past we used to have banded classes like EM1, EM2, EM3. These kind of stream classes have already been removed for many, many years. So we don't have such a fast track and normal track classes. Okay, what will happen if my child brings mobile phone to school? Will it be confiscated? Let me just answer from Admiralty Primary School's point of view. While we do actually strongly discourage our students from bringing mobile phones to school. In fact, all our children here have got access to our school phones here to be able to call back to the parents when they need help from the parents. They need to contact you for certain things. And we are very clear with our children when they are in school. As a student, there is a way that you actually go about your entire school day, right? You contact your parents only if you really have a need to, because you also want them to be independent. But if you really do need your child to be holding onto a mobile phone, we expect our children to switch off the mobile phone or perhaps turn it to silent mode if, let's say, there are very, very strong reasons why your child really needs to be checking the phone. But in such cases, I would recommend do let your child's form teacher know why is it that your child needs to be holding on to that mobile phone and checking the mobile phone. I'll give you an example, all right? Touch wood, but something happened in the family, maybe someone is in the hospital and you really do need your child to be on standby. And even then, when this happens, actually, from the school's point of view, is that what has happened before is that you call into the school. In fact, our school will be able to attend to you very, very promptly. Because what we will do immediately is we will send someone up to quickly get the child to come down. Sometimes even if a child has a mobile phone, because he's not allowed to check in the school, in the class, right, because it may disrupt his learning, the child will not be able to see anything and may miss the phone call also. Right. So we only confiscate mobile phones if the child has broken the school rule, meaning that they are very clear they're not supposed to switch on the phone and use the phone during curriculum time, but they have done so. So we will confiscate the mobile phone because they are very clear they're not supposed to be using the phone during curriculum time. All right. I hope that has answered your question as well. Okay. Thank you for all the questions that have come in. I hope that it has been comprehensive as far as possible for parents who have joined us today. I think if along the way you do have other questions, specifically for Admiralty Primary School especially, I think feel free to write into our school address as well. We will see how we can help you with some of your queries. If you're able to leave us your mobile number when you send in an email to us, that will be even better because we obviously actually prefer to pick up a call, just to call you back, chat over the phone. That is also easier. One of my colleagues will be able to do that. All right. I think if there are no further questions, really thank you for your time. I hope that this session has been important and very useful for you, not just from Admiralty Primary School's point of view to consider us as a school of your choice, but also for, hopefully has given you good information to consider other schools as well at the primary level. Right. Thank you so much. And you're most welcome. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, I will be closing this session now. Thank you so much. The materials will be uploaded to our school website. Thank you.